I'm going to start by asking you, Sergio, to introduce yourself. Just say your name, the university or institution that you represent, and where you're from.
Okay, I'm from Italy, and I'm working at the Department of Social Science, Social and Political Science at the University of Milan. I am associated professor, and I teach media communication, and particularly I am very keen in journalism. My recent publication are on journalism. Yeah.
And for those of us who don't know your name, what is your name?
Sergio Splendore.
All right, thank you, Sergio. So, without any further ado, I'm going to start by asking you the first question, which is, how has digitization affected news media in your country?
Uh, yeah. In this field, it's crucial dividing and distinguishing the supply side from the demand side. Evaluating the data and the stats that are available, um, you can affirm that Italians are perceiving the impacts of digitization on their daily consumption of news. They for sure are slightly changing their habits, but at the same time, they are still linked, or better, they symbolic recognize the quality news from the ones from legacy and well-established media. Uh, the effect is that impressive on the provision side. Proliferation of news websites, particularly at the local level, um, where the information were jeopardized by the crisis, and now is nourished from thousands and thousands of small newsrooms in the entire Italy. Availability to access and compare different sources on digital and websites, of course. Introduction of accountability and transparency practice in daily routines of journalists that 10 years ago were barely in existence. Journalists who comment their articles via social media, comments of readers and answer from practitioners. And third, media criticism. Website which list the mistake of legacy media, informal comments by social media. The media criticism has never been established in Italy, and now it is informally, of course, well established. That's all, I guess.
So, in terms of social uprisings in your country on social media websites, are there any? Are these common? I know I've heard of V-Day.
Yeah.
Beppe Grillo started that one, and that seemed to have generated a huge buzz. But in terms of social media uprisings in your country, are they few and far in between, or are they frequent?
I can't say that they are not. Today, it's a very particular case. Now in Italy, there are so many different scholars that are studying VD, that are studying Movement 5 Stars that we know now is in Parliament. But the path of Movement 5 Stars uh, takes place from legacy media. Beppe Grillo was a comedian, was very, very, very popular, and he has had the ability to use his popularity to involve so many people by mass. But it is not, I guess, this is my opinion, it is not the opinion of other scholars. You cannot consider the Voudet and the Movement 5 Stars like a net and web and internet-based movement. So my answer to your question is they are not. As well as in any other democratic country, social media are used also in order to organize and to solicit the participation, political participation. Every single politician use at the same time his or her social media accounts, Facebook and Twitter, to solicit the participation, to have a relationship with his and her electoral base. There are several levels of participation. I do not quote you Verbat and Almond, and we do not definitely rearrange their categories, but from the signing of a petition to participate in some demonstration. But at the end, I can say that the social media becomes also a great site for media criticism and analysis, but they are not the origin of very great uprising, like, I don't know, in the Arab world or something like that, in Turkey, etc., etc.
Right, right. So, I mean, with that being said, where do you think the future of journalism is headed in your country, given that now, users are able to comment and actively participate in the creation and selection and text and information of stories?
Yeah, you know that this is a very good question, okay, but it's definitely hard to answer properly because the issue is so wide. Anyway, I can say that it's definitely difficult to speak in terms of future of journalism because sign of future, like we have already mentioned, media criticism for Italy, of course, and interaction between journalists and people and readers are everywhere. Um, there are some examples that I can provide to you. For instance, the RCS, that is the publisher of Corriere della Sera, that is one of it is definitely our most important newspaper, our most important quality newspaper. Speaking about Corriere della Sera in Italy is like speaking about the New York Times for you, or the Time for UK. Corriere della Sera has bought ureporter.it, that is a is a citizen website, citizen journalist website, where citizens send their videos, photographs about current events or anything could be useful and newsworthy. And Corriere della Sera just bought 1 month ago, a couple of weeks ago, ureporter.it. Il Giornale, that is another great and traditional newspaper that now from 10 years ago, 20 years ago, owned to the Berlusconi family. And so it has a great high level of political parallelism, but it is anyway, the website is, I think, I am pretty much sure that the website is a great newspaper. The website, the paper, we can discuss about that. Another is making crowdfunding journalists to pay and send independent journalists to cover war zones. You know that when a paper is in a big crisis, the first action to cut cost is to not send journalists to the war zone. Okay, they are trying to do this crowdfunding journalists just to cover that kind of zone. This is future. This is definitely future of journalism. I can guess that Italian journalists will need a couple of generations to complete a definitive turnover where all journalists will be able to explicit every single technology, and they will able to cut down borders in their daily practices, because now traditional journalists that usually work for paper or television are not very keen to use camera, to use website,
right,
employ every single tools that the website, the internet can provide. I think that in a couple of generations, new journalists will be able to use their camera and edit and register a video or something like that. And there will be the real change also in Italian journalism. Anyway, and I try to guess something about the future and what the Italian journalism could become. Will be a journalist to mix and balance the accurate editorial work. This is fundamental, because we cannot just expect that the citizen journalism will provide our future news, our future information. We really need, also when the citizen journalism or instruments provided by the internet will be stronger. We really need an accurate editorial work. We really need professional journalists that collect, select, filter this kind of information they provide. And so accurate editorial work with the use of alternative sources. And at the same time, these journalists will be, of course, still in the hand of some well-established and legacy media. The example of Corriere della Sera is one of the most brilliant, just to explain this procedure. So legacy media, well-established media, Mediaset, Rupert Murdoch, so on, we will go to acquire, to buy this kind of new initiative and make them definitely more professional than they are now.
So what is the greatest obstacle now that journalists face in Italy? Is it the political pressures, economic pressures? What is it exactly?
There are so many surveys, so many data from the 80s that state that the two great obstacles for journalists are economic pressure, now more than ever, of course, because online journalism faces every single day the economic pressure. They have to collect users, collect comments, collect, likes and retweet, and so they definitely have data every single day to collect at the end advertisers. So economic and political pressure, that I think economic pressure are common in so many different European countries, at least I guess also in the US. I think they are also education, lack of professionalism, uncertainty of code of ethics. There are no code of ethics that are very well recognized by all journalists, all Italian journalists. All these negative trends are not created by digitization. They are not linked to digitization, but are due definitely from the state of art in Italy, from the state of art of journalism in Italy.
So before I ask you the question about you becoming a journalist today, I added another question I just wanted to get your take on. How has the politics in your country, specifically when Berlusconi was prime minister, how did that affect the selection and quality of the news? Because it seems like, when you own that much, with Mediaset and or have some kind of influence like RAI, it seems like there seems to present a conflict of interest there when a politician, especially being the prime minister, having that much power, there seems to be a conflict of interest there in terms of the kinds of stories journalists can or cannot put out. How has the media changed since his resignation, and how was it different when he was in power as prime minister for journalists?
Yeah. It's another very difficult question. I say just at the very beginning, just a joke that Berlusconi is not the cause of bad journalism, but is the effect of bad journalism. In Italy, the motif, the explanation that can explain why Berlusconi became prime minister 3 times in Italy is because we don't have a good journalism. And so I think that this is the real relation. So something changed. I don't think so. We have to discuss the influence of Berlusconi on the Italian journalism depends on his ownership. This is a political economy discourse. He has Mediaset, and so 3 different TV news. One of the most popular TV news that is provided and broadcasted by Canale 5. He has Il Giornale, that we have already mentioned, and he has Panorama, that is another weekly magazine, and definitely the kind of journalism they provide is close to the political line of Berlusconi. So, but at the same time, are other kind of journalism, other kind of news provider from different broadcaster, different newspapers. So I think that the great problem in Italy that is recognized by the great book written by Daniel Hallin and Paolo Mancini on the model of journalism is the high level of political parallelism that affected every single media, every single news organization in Italy, not just the news organizations that are linked to Berlusconi. So I think that if journalism is now, Italian journalism is now improving somehow, it depends from other factors, maybe some effects from digitization, from some effects from the conversation between journalists and readers, because you have so many different sources. Because I know that for you, for American people, it can appear just pretty much weird, but because with the website, with the online, with digitization, journalists must face the market. The market. Instead, so many different newspapers historically were financed and funded by states and political parties. Now they have to stay in the market. They have to sell their news. So if something is changing, if something is improving, I think it does not depend directly to the fact that Berlusconi has resigned. This is my idea, my opinion.
So finally, Sergio, if you had the choice to do it all over again, would you still become a journalist today, knowing that it's going through all these changes and you're facing all kinds of economic pressures from everywhere? Would you still become a journalist today?
Yeah, it is what I usually say to my students. We have this course in university that is sociology, journalism, and so I have so many people, so many students that want to become journalists. Yes, you became a journalist today. I think it's the best moment in Italian journalism because there are so many different opportunities. Who wants to be a journalist has so many possibility to realize her and his inspiration by the net, by the online tools, by studying big data, by inventing some application that can be very useful to provide information to people. If being journalist means making, distributing news and having some profit to survive, well, it's definitely the time to try. It's definitely time to try. A young journalist must be entrepreneurial. He and she has to study and use new technology and platform to learn to be innovative. Make low-cost journalists at the local level. We have already mentioned that. Creating your own website and offering as a freelance innovative output to legacy media. There are so many chances to be a journalist, but you have to be a journalist in an innovative way. You have to destroy, I can say, the old constraints. You have to be definitely to propose new possibility, and you have to not be close to the old and traditional figure of journalist. This is my opinion, and this is what I try to explain and to my students.
All right. Well, Sergio, thank you again for your time, taking the time out to conduct this interview for me, for my project, considering that this is of the utmost importance. I really appreciate it. And if there's anything else that you wanted to add, if not, thank you
Right.
so much.
Thank you.
I think you did a very good job covering all the bases, going in depth by giving a real life perspective of what it's like to be an Italian journalist, which is in essence the purpose of the interview today, was to really get your perspective so that we can put a face to all these answers and also get as much depth as possible and understanding as we can of truly of how things are affecting your country just like it's affecting our country in the U.S. So it
Yeah.
was really nice for you to take the time and do that for us. So
Okay.
thank you very much, Professor.
Thank you. Keep in touch and say goodbye to everyone. Okay.
Most definitely. All right. Thank you
Okay.
so much, Professor.